In order, thank you so much. I apologize for being a little bit late. We are going to start the February 2nd, 2015 meeting for the Committee for Facilities and Planning, and thank you all for braving First things first, I'll take a motion for approval of the minutes from the meeting of November 3rd, 2015. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. You will note that unfortunately our Vice Chancellor Bertram is home ill today, and in her place is Mr. Robert Lemieux, who is our Executive Director for Design and Construction. And so we do wish Judy a quick recovery. And thank you, Robert, for stepping in. Appreciate it. To our policy calendar, first item of business, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to make it easier and just turn it over to Robert so that he can present our resolutions for today.
Okay. The first item is for Baruch College, the new building automation system for the administration building, and the request of the City University Construction Fund to execute a purchase order with the Train Company for the design and installation of a new building automation of a building automation system in the administration building under an existing New York State Office of General Services contract. The total cost of all such purchases shall be chargeable to the State Capital Construction Fund, project number 323-870-9999, for an amount not to exceed $900,000. The contract shall be subject to approval as to form by the University Office of the General Counsel. Just as a little explanation, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system in the administration building is antiquated, as some of you know, I'm sure, and in need of, and without appropriate controls and software for the building. There are also various basic equipment is in condition and in need of. That's what this project is going to do. Any questions? Answer. Okay. The second item is for the Brooklyn College campus-wide fire alarm and security system, and the request of the City University Construction Fund to execute a contract with the firm of Johnson Controls Incorporated to purchase construction and equipment installation to complete the Phase 1 portion of a multi-phase project to upgrade the entire campus-wide fire alarm and security systems at Brooklyn College under an existing New York State Services contract number PT 63103. The total cost of all purchases shall be chargeable to the State Capital Construction Fund, project number 2875209999, for an amount not to exceed $15 million. The contract shall be subject to approval as to form by the University Office of the General Counsel. And as an explanation, the campus-wide building expansion and changes in the New York City Fire Code necessitates an upgrade of existing fire alarm and security to bring them up to code. This project will complete the installation of Phase 1 work, including a campus-wide infrastructure, complete fit-out of the new central command station in Ingersoll Hall, testing and commissioning of the system, and this proposed construction installation will be CUNY managed through the CUCF. Any questions on this?
Is the $15 million just for Phase 1?
Yes, this is all the buildings on that campus, and this is to fundamentally to establish a new command center in Ingersoll Hall. The current one is in Whitman, the Whitman building. It's very small and it's inadequate to the fire department's needs. So these are expensive upgrades, but this is the entire Brooklyn campus that needs to be upgraded. So. Third item is the Hostos Community College Allied Health and Natural Science Building Complex. This is to request the City University Construction Fund to execute a consultant contract for an amount not to exceed $10 million with facility leaders in architectural, engineering, and design, PC, also known as FLAD. Incidentally, FLAD is the same firm that designed the ASRC CCNY complex up at City College that's now being occupied. So with FLAD for the design of the Hostos Community College Allied Health and Natural Science Building Complex. The design contract is being awarded to the firm ranked highest during an interview process of firms expressed interest in the RFQ, developed by CUNY Central Office of Design, Construction, and Management. The contract will be chargeable to the City University Construction Fund, UCF, for an amount not to exceed $10 million. The contract shall be subject to approval as to form by the University Office of the General Counsel. Just as explained, this Health and Natural Science Building Complex will accommodate the existing programs in dental hygiene, radiologic technology, and nursing, and will provide space for this college's expanding allied health natural science offerings. Recommendations from the master plan amendment and discussions with college administrators will be used to determine the full program for this new building. This is a new building that will be designed. The location is the old carpet building on Walton Avenue, kind of just west of the main campus. Any questions?
What's the anticipated timeline? I know this is the first phase, but in terms of design, but
Well,
I mean, what are there any other? What are the major hurdles?
the major hurdle is getting funding for the construction.
Yeah.
So we are basically starting with a contract which will take us, we will advance it through schematic designs to really get a better understanding, programmatic and schematic design. That'll probably be done in about 16 months. We will then take it through design development, and I will not take it to construction documents until, in fact, we have money to do the construction, because things change, and that's going to be the long lead time on this.
What's the total estimated cost for
I think
the
it's
total project?
about $240 million.
And how many students would that serve?
I'll have to get back to you, Charlie. I don't know the answer, but I mean, it'll be a complete building. There'll probably be several hundred students in the building, but we can get back to you with a number.
If I'm not at Hosto, so presumably it would serve quite.
And it's very separated on the campus. This is an attempt to basically put it all together in one location and basically do it much more efficiently.
This is a rehab, though.
No, this is a new building.
So the carpet building area will be a site that would be.
It's a site that we own.
Right.
We own the site now. It's basically, there's a construction scaffold around it to keep it many problems. We own the site. The master plan that was done recommended this site as the location to build the building. We're following up on the master plan recommendation.
Gotcha. Can you tell us a little bit more about this architecture engineering firm? You went very quickly there with what they've done before.
Flat basically originated, I think fundamentally had been a Midwestern Wisconsin firm. They were the firm that did the primary design with KPF for the Allied
CCMY.
Yeah, the two new buildings that we built up in Mississippi. They've done a very good job. They expressed interest. They basically were selected by the committee. They have been becoming a much more New York presence. They're doing a fair amount of work at Columbia. They do a lot of science, nursing type of buildings design.
How are we doing with MBE, WBE with regard to that? Is it one firm or we have a little consortium?
They will basically do a consortium. I mean, basically, they have the same kind of goals as anybody else.
Anybody with regard to this?
I think that they're starting to identify their subcontractors, and that's how they will basically meet the goals.
Yeah, how are their operating costs, just the buildings they construct, either for us or otherwise, compared to other firms?
They're not doing the construction, they're only doing the design.
Okay.
So, okay.
In terms of MBWE, given that this is Ostos, are there any, what have they stated regarding their proactive efforts in that area?
I don't know exactly what they are at this moment in time, Phil. I believe Hostos is a set-aside campus, and they have very high goals, so.
But we don't know what those goals are, those targets are.
Well, the targets in the contract are probably, well, they will, it's probably going to be 30%, because those are the new state goals. It's combined 30%.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering, because I know that we have set we have goals that are in place, 30%.
Right.
And just wondering that as they were ranked higher in the interview, whether the whole issue of MBWE and how they would be able to achieve 30% was outlined. Was it just kind of stated they're going to do it, or did they have some proactive efforts that they would engage in order to achieve that?
I can't answer that because I wasn't on the committee that basically interviewed them.
I do think that's something that's
The this is a resolution to approve. I noticed that it is also subject to review and approval by the Office of General Counsel. Would it be inappropriate for this committee to get a report back on this particular fact before council approves? Is that correct? Would that be reasonable? Mr. Schaefer, General Counsel, please.
Well, my office doesn't ordinarily review except as to form. If you want us to look at that, we certainly can.
And
Well, you would be reviewing the terms in the contract to approve it.
Right, but generally, we don't review the
Well, that would
business
be one
terms.
term. It would just be a report back to the committee on where it stands. That's all I'm asking for.
I'm concerned that we need to probably vote on this in order for us to move forward, but certainly, I would imagine that.
I think we should vote on it.
Okay.
All I'm offering is I can't offer an amendment, but I could suggest that this committee would like to get back. It's a very large contract. It's pure architecture engineering. It is Hostos, and we've made a commitment. In fact,
And also, before the CUCF, that would be also an opportunity for a more detailed report, regarding their proactive efforts, Bob.
yes, and in fact, we will make sure that, our standard contracts have requirements for MWB participation requirement as part of them, and we can basically make that information available to the committee and to anyone else that would like to see it.
Wonderful, let's move on.
Okay. Item 4 is Hostos Community College, the 500 grand concourse renovation of the 4th floor, the sub-cellar, the installation of rooftop emergency generator. To request the acceptance of the design and renovation of the 4th floor, sub-cellar, and installation of rooftop at the Hostos Community College concourse as prepared by Goshow Architects, LLP, who were selected through a DASNY request for proposal process. And just as an explanation, renovation of the 4th floor and the sub-cellar and installation of the rooftop emergency generator bring these areas into compliance with the programmatic needs of the college and applicable codes and standards. This is the third phase of a 5-phase program to renovate this building, a 500 grand concourse. The first and the 5th floors have already been renovated. The first floor is the dental clinic. It's very successful, and the 5th floor was finished about 2 years ago. Okay?
Is the sub-cellar in this building a flood risk if there's something like Sandy or another bad?
No, I don't believe so.
This
I
is
think
up
that
high.
If they're up high. Item number 5 is York College campus-wide design and installation of new air conditioning equipment in information technology closets. To request the City University Construction Fund to execute a purchase order on behalf of York College with Siemens Industries, Inc. for services to design and install new air conditioning equipment in 38 IT closets throughout the York campus under the existing New York State Office of General Services contract. Total cost of all such purchases shall be chargeable to the State Capital Construction Fund, project number 323-700-999, for an amount not to exceed $1 million. And as an explanation, this new improved air conditioning capacity is required due to the increase in heat generating IT and security equipment in these closets. Currently, cooling systems were not designed to meet the heat loads created by the servers and other equipment needed to run the college's IT and security systems. Fundamentally, if they overheat, they burn out. So, this is to keep them cool and operating. Okay? Questions on this?
Wonderful, that is all of our items. I will take a motion to adopt these resolutions.
I'll move it.
For a second?
Second.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, these motions carry. Next on the agenda for informational purposes only, the first thing we're going to talk about is Startup New York. You guys have heard a lot about it, I'm sure of it. We are going to have a presentation by Ms. Anna Sunshine, but before we do that, I invite the Chancellor to say a few words.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I'm pleased that Dana's with us today. I'm going to do an update on this. You all are familiar with CUNY. I thought this was one of the most exciting opportunities for sort of space-based economic development with universities. So as you all know, and Dana will review with you, in November 13, you approved the designations of the LEAP campuses for one in each borough for the Startup New York program. They are proceeding at different levels of alacrity, I would say, in each of the boroughs, but it's a tremendous opportunity, and really each of the 5 lead exciting ways to attract and grow startup businesses in connection with CUNY activities. The most exciting thing to me, in addition to new businesses in these areas of New York where new business is much needed, whether it's in Jamaica, Queens, or it's in Bronx in connection with Bronx Community College, is the nexus with our campuses where our faculty, our students, our curriculum, and a pathway to job opportunities is increased. So I'm excited about this, and I think everybody around me in this building knows pushing hard to get us to have some successes with this early on. I think it's a great opportunity and will, I think, demonstrate the capacity of CUNY to be an active partner with the state in regional economic development. So with that, Dana, look forward to the update.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dana Sunshine. I'm the Interim Director of Public Partnerships here at CUNY. And as you know, in November of 2013, CUNY's Board of Trustees designated 5 campuses to be part of the CUNY Startup New York initiative. We're working towards partnering with our first businesses and wanted to take this opportunity to give you a refresher presentation, if you will, on the startup program.
Are you going to tell us, remind us which of the 5 campuses?
I will.
Yeah.
I will,
Thanks.
absolutely. The goal of Startup New York is to create tax-free zones on eligible university campuses in New York State for new and expanding businesses. Businesses will have the opportunity to operate and local tax-free on or near academic campuses, and their employees will pay no state or local personal income taxes. So there's currently 73 businesses and 63 schools that have been approved for the Startup New York initiative as a whole. In the downstate region, however, only Stony Brook and Downstate Medical Center have approved businesses so far. Eligible businesses in downstate New York must be in the formative stages of development or engaged in the development of new technology and/or manufacturing processes and meet other requirements for high-tech businesses. However, for many startups, this program may not be appropriate. Businesses without employees, inventory, or profits cannot really take advantage of the major tax benefits that define the program. Second, businesses will most likely have to either pay rent to a private landlord or make improvements in a vacant space. In either situation, the business will need credit, a guarantee, or source of funding not typical to a startup. However, there are situations where new businesses are well-funded or offshoots of established entities or with both experience and skills that CUNY is interested in sponsoring.
Did you say the business has to be profitable? I mean, many startups that are well-funded are not profitable for several years.
That's correct. I think we're talking about the tax incentives, to be able to take advantage of the tax incentives and the tax advantages. It's difficult. I'll go through a list of, actually this next slide kind of shows a list of the type of benefits that the program offers. So they must be high-tech or startups, create new jobs, be aligned with the mission of the host campus, and provide links to the community, tax benefits, sales, business, corporate tax, and franchise fee exemptions, as well as personal tax exemptions for ways in new jobs. Participating businesses must not compete with any other existing business within the immediate community. They must also comply with labor laws such as providing minimum wage jobs, disability, and workers' comp. However, businesses can use multiple economic development programs such as local IDA benefits, property tax benefits, and funding from the city and local development corporations. In exchange, CUNY colleges can receive many benefits from the businesses, including internships, scholarship funding, and curriculum assistance, and I'll address that here on this slide. This shows a list of affiliation benefits between the college and these partnering businesses. I'm not going to read them all, but full-time jobs, paid internships, scholarships, teaching a course, mentoring, et cetera. For on-campus leases, there are many more restrictions on the compensation for reasons that I'll describe in just a bit. Prohibited businesses for this program include retail, wholesale, restaurants, law firms, real estate, finance, personal services, businesses providing business administrative or support services, accounting, and utilities. Those are all restricted. One CUNY campus, as we've mentioned, an economically distressed community in each borough was designated in November of 2013. Bronx Community College, the City College of New York, College of Staten Island, Medgar Evers, and York. Those are the 5 colleges. Other CUNY campuses may participate in the program by competing for a pool of up to 150,000 square feet of additional space per borough. And they would compete with other private colleges in that borough. And that this 150,000 is also available to be set aside. The 5 designated campuses may contribute an unlimited amount of space to the campus, to the program, however, and other CUNY campuses can choose to joint venture with any one of these 5 campuses. So this slide shows there's many administrative requirements, but this slide shows a basic timeline for a business to join the program. First, the college prepares a campus plan. Almost all of them are complete with their campus plan. About that in a minute. The college submits the campus plan for a 30-day review to the municipality, to college governance, LDCs, local politicians, unions. Then after that 30-day review, the college submits the campus plan to ESD for approval. At the same time or afterwards, the business would then submit a business application to the college. Then the college prepares a sponsorship application to the CUNY Sponsorship Committee, which I'll talk about in a minute. And if the approves the business, then the college forwards the approved sponsorship application to ESD for approval, and ESD has 60 days. They will approve it and then send it to taxation for their approval. So that's how a business kind of gets through this process.
So in theory, this all gets done within 90 days?
I think it's a little more. There's 30 days on the front end and 60 days on the back end that are not prescribed, but sort of.
Yeah, so it looks like what
It's
we've
a little
always
more
said. We
than
may
that.
be looking more like at 9 months to a year for
Something like
The 5 CUNY campuses have completed their own campus plan?
all of them except Megger, and we're almost there within a few weeks of submitting Meggers, yes.
And what is the governance process? Do those plans come to the Board of Trustees or to this committee for review?
Those campus plans can be changed. They're very fluid. They can be changed at any time. You can include on-campus or off-campus space. You can put space on and then designate other space. So it's not something that we've brought to the board necessarily. It's gone to ESD for approval, but again, it's very fluid. So if there's an off-campus space that looks like it's going to work, we can add it in and just take 30 days for ESD to approve an update.
And who's the head of ESD at this point?
Ken Adams.
There's a new head.
Karen
of
Adams?
ESD.
No.
Yeah.
Howard Zemsky.
Oh, that's right, he did come. Right.
Ken just recently left.
What do you mean by municipality?
So just, sorry.
Question.
Sorry, I
No,
didn't.
go back to the last slide.
The last slide.
He's asking about that too? Prepares a campus plan and it submits it to the municipality. Does that mean New York City or?
Right, and
community
this was
board?
speaking generally about the startup program, but municipality would be New York City in this case.
And LDC will mean Local Development Corporation.
Right, any interested local development corporation in the area.
And would CUNY at least be notified? Because I think that Chair Schmidt was saying that, the question is, we're not approving this, but if ESD makes changes and our real estate or potentially our real estate is affected, is somebody telling us that? Because it just says right now ESD approves, forwards it on taxation, and then do we wake up and find that something has happened that we weren't expecting?
Yeah, I mean, I think at a minimum, this committee ought to not necessarily have the right of approval, but at least know what's in them. So just as a matter for our information, so we can so we can be aware of any differences between City College and other campuses that are in the program.
Then let me say what we were going to do, and if this is adequate, fine, and if not, we can do it in a different way. It was our intent to bring to the committee and to the board the selection of individual companies and present along with it what the plan was pursuant to which that company was selected. Now, in the case of the very first that's coming down the pike right now, the selection process is almost done, but not quite. And so we couldn't present it to the committee because we don't have it final selection to present, but between now and the board meeting, that is likely to happen, and we were planning to bring as a table item the selection of that first company to the board. This meeting, we call it the February meeting, but it's actually the beginning of March.
So this example would have gone through all 7 of the steps that we have here? They would have completed this full process? Where will this one example being brought before the board fit along this process timeline?
It will be past number 5 and before number 6.
So it won't have ESD review.
It will not have to ESD review without the board.
And can you tell us the name of the company, or is that
No,
confidential?
We can't.
We can't.
I can tell you it's in the Bronx, and it's Bronx Community College is the partner, but at this point,
What is the obligation of the college with regard to a given business? What is the college's specific obligations to a local business?
The college really is able to convey these benefits. It's not that the college necessarily has the obligation to meet those expectations that are outlined in the business's application. The business will say that they're providing X, Y, and Z for the college, and if they don't at any time meet those obligations, we can go to ESD and say they're not meeting their obligations, we don't want them in the program anymore, and they lose their tax incentives.
in the ideal situation, a local economic development entity would probably own or lease space that would be made available to a startup, not the college, so we wouldn't have the risk involved.
They would have the tax exemption on real estate taxes, et cetera.
Yeah, we're going to describe that in a little.
I think what this committee, or what we should be concerned about is what obligation, and I raised this the first time it was brought up, what kind of obligations a given campus would have with regard to a specific business other than bringing it before ESD or to an LDC and saying this business is not meeting the requirements as we understood them. What happens at that point?
Donovan, did you have a question to follow up with that, or is that a separate question?
I'll wait.
Okay.
I think what we're.
Who's responsible for monitoring whether the business is following through on what it has promised? Would that be you?
The college.
The college.
The college, on the commitments to the college.
The college would.
So the college says the business is not meeting its obligations or the criteria that have been set forth for the selection.
Right.
They then submit that finding or those concerns, not finding, excuse me, Mr. Counsel.
Well, Rick, I
Those
think,
concerns to someone, to the LDC and to ESD. Do we know, who is responsible? Dana, do you have a counterpart at ESD?
There's a woman named Leslie Watley who runs the Startup New York program for ESD.
and she's all over the state.
She is. Correct.
Well, I think, Rick, what you described in terms of what this committee is going to see and what the board's going to see suits me. I think when you describe the plan, you should indicate who at the college is going to monitor the various because just say the college is going to do it, you know, it may slip through the cracks. It needs to be some designated person at the college, or maybe different people depending on the nature of the obligation that the business is undertaking.
We can do that.
I would make a very strong suggestion that this, essentially you call program steps, the world of consultants would call it a process map, have a little bit more about, maybe in a different color, where CUNY campuses fit here. And not only what obligation you have, but the whole notion of due diligence and monitoring and follow-up should be in there somewhere, since it's focused on 5 great campuses in our system.
Yeah, it also sounds
I'm
like.
sorry, Donovan, did you have another question?
Yes, I wanted to know if there's other campuses other than CUNY that are participating in this program, and how would it affect our participation throughout the 5 boroughs?
Oh, you mean within the 5 boroughs, other campuses? Good
Other than
question.
CUNY campus.
I believe only NYU has applied for that 150,000 extra square feet of space that are available, but I do not believe that they have identified a specific business or space quite yet.
One of the opportunities that is at this point unresolved, but I think is a high potential opportunity, if it's resolved the right way, is for our designated campuses to enter into collaborations or partnerships with other institutions who may bring something complementary to the consortium and want to participate in that borough under the unlimited grant of space to one of the 5 designated colleges.
Jay?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Donovan, I'm sorry, Donovan, you have a follow-up?
Yes.
What was it?
So now, if the other campuses are collaborating other than CUNY, how does that favor for the students with the opportunity of internships and jobs? Wouldn't they be end up now competing, like a CUNY student competing with an NYU student or a?
Well,
Same company is not going to be involved.
NYU
More than
has
one
the
place.
opportunity, or a private has the opportunity to compete for the 150,000 square feet in a particular borough, independent of CUNY. They have that opportunity following a similar process. In fact, our other campuses could compete for some of that same 150,000 square feet. It's an unlimited availability to the 5 designated. So just conceptually, if you're one of the designated campuses, say, and you wanted to enter into a consortium with additional universities who might bring some complementary programs which might help attract a business that you want to participate with, you would be determining the nature of that consortium, and you would be looking out for the nexus that York had with the company, the internships, the other potential benefits to the college.
Jay?
Yeah, so two follow-ups. First, we were discussing the need for reporting up to this body before the relationship is entered into, but it sounds like these are the types of entities that are very likely, startups, you name it, to slide or to enter into something. So it sounds like there should be some sort of ongoing reporting by the college.
We'll get to that in the next item agenda.
Okay, each year, okay, for that. And then the other thing in terms of the compliance, I thought most of these were going to be, because the other, number one, I can see reputational risk to the university if some of these are not kosher, but then number two, if you have somebody who's taking up space that either is or could be used by colleges, and then they are not performing their end, then you've lost the space, so, and is the college then going to enforce?
Well, let me jump in and answer that, because Dana has answered that question for me. We don't have a lot of space that would qualify sitting around unused that we're planning to use for this purpose. So that at least today is off campus and would be provided by another intermediary. So it's not on our campus, not our space. It's conceivable that it could be, but that's not what we're looking at now, just partly because of the availability of the space.
So if I could, right here, just ask Dana how much more of the presentation you have to go.
We have a few more slides, and it will
Okay.
address some of this on-campus off space.
Are some of these comments, can some of these comments wait until we finish the entire presentation?
Sure.
Because maybe, Dana, please continue.
Thank you. Okay, so designated space can include vacant space in a building or vacant land on campus, or vacant space in a building or vacant land off campus that's affiliated with the college through an MOU with a not-for-profit, which I'll describe a little further in a minute, New York State incubators or hotspots. So potential on-campus deals are complicated by the use of tax-exempt bond proceeds on most campuses. So there's a number of complications on campus, but this is one of them. All the campus plans, as I said, have been approved by Evers, which we're within weeks of submitting. Once Megger's plan is approved, CUNY will have a total of 42,500 square feet of built space and almost 17 acres of land in the program on campus. However, only a small percentage of space financed through tax-exempt bonds can be allocated for private use. So for on-campus space, many forms of consideration, including rent, may be deemed by bond counsel to put the tax-exempt bonds associated with the campus at risk. Bond counsel would have to review any on-campus partnership we do, and he would also have to review the city and/or the state. In addition, available unused, as the Chancellor just mentioned, additional available unused on-campus space has been challenging to identify, as most of our campuses are oversubscribed, as you know. For off-campus space, we need a third-party not-for-profit who will hold the lease on our behalf. We don't want to lease space ourselves and take on the risk of leasing to companies with limited track records. In certain cases, we have been able to find properties where a not-for-profit is already in the chain of title, such as the city's industrial development for the Brooklyn Navy Yard. We can enter into an MOU with the not-for-profit, which enables us to convey the tax benefits and receive a variety of compensation that I mentioned earlier. As well, it's important to note that for any space to be designated for the program, it must be vacant at the time it's designated. So as we've mentioned a number of times, we brought this presentation to you today because we're getting close to being able to partner with our first business. CUNY's sponsorship committee, which includes members from the Provost Office, Academic Affairs, Research, and University Management, will review a business proposed by Bronx Community College later this month. The business will be located off-campus, and CUNY will enter an MOU with the IDA as our not-for-profit partner who will hold the lease. If the business is approved by the sponsorship committee, it will be brought to the board in March. As well, CUNY and Medgar Evers are working on an MOU with the Brooklyn Navy Yard. The Navy Yard has identified 9,000 square feet for the startup program at their facility. Both the Navy Yard and Medgar Evers are reviewing potential business for the space. We continue to work on partnerships and MY and CSI continue to broaden CUNY's participation in this exciting initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, questions?
Well, I want to come back to something that Charlie brought up. It seems to me that one risk for CUNY in this is that the startup businesses which are selected to be our partners with our various campuses get substantial public benefits in which they're supposed to deliver jobs and economic benefits and academic benefits to the campus, which is their partner. If the business does not meet its obligations both to the campus and its general economic development obligations, I think CUNY could find itself in the position of being viewed as having not carried out its due diligence and monitoring of how the business is actually doing, so that to see to it that the business complies with their campus obligations and their economic development obligations. And if a business failed to do those things and we did not get on top of it quickly, we could be viewed as having failed in our public responsibilities. So I want to be sure that the is carefully identified and that the people on the campus and the people in the central administration who are reviewing what these businesses are doing stay on top of it, because I think CUNY could suffer some reputational damage if a business continued to collect public benefits but was failing to deliver on its economic development terms or its campus or what it's supposed to do for the campus. I want to be sure that the monitoring is robust, both at the campus level and in terms of reviewing the economic development benefits that the business is supposed to provide.
Jay, Wellington, and Charlie.
Yeah, I would just observe there is also a reputational risk if you do pull the trigger and say you are not complying and therefore we want to pull your tax benefits. you were then going to be in the papers for killing jobs just because they didn't provide. So I think you may very well find, so got to monitor carefully, clear standards, because this may be a heads-eye, win, tails-you-lose situation here. Especially when I'm hearing 9,000 square feet, so it's a lot of reputational risk for 9,000 square feet.
Just to follow up Chairman Smith's point, is there any example on the SUNY side? Is the SUNY side, what type of monitoring are they doing on their part?
We can talk to them about it. They have accepted, we've spoken to a couple of campuses, and they've accepted quite a number of businesses. They have quite a large amount of vacant space that they've been willing to put into the program, and we can talk with them further about it. In some cases, there is not a tremendous amount of monitoring, from what we understand. In other cases, maybe there is, and I think it probably depends on the business and the school.
Well, I want to be sure that any business that is partnering with CUNY gets an appropriate level of monitoring.
Charlie?
Yeah, two quick points, and it really goes back, first and foremost, I don't want to sound terribly negative, because I think this is a great program with tremendous opportunity, but it's fraught with all kinds of issues, which we've discussed here. 2 points, Dana, and maybe point number one will be answered when you present the business to the board meeting in March, and that is the question of how economic benefits are measured, how they were measured with regard to any individual business, the standards against which the business can be held. With regard to the issue of CUNY being viewed as a conduit for tax benefits to businesses that don't deliver, which is a possibility, there is precedent that ESDC is only too well aware of, where they have granted tax abatements in past years to businesses in the state who didn't deliver on jobs and the economic benefits, and yet they were still entitled to the tax benefits. That ESDC has in place a very solid monitoring system for what we would say is clawback. You don't deliver, we want the tax pennies back. And I think we should be prepared to think in those terms. And I hate to be on the negative side, but underwriting and due diligence would require it on this, both reputationally and quantitatively.
Yeah. Of course, we're not making the decision on that. The state is ultimately, and they're monitoring the economic performance and also the tax abatements. What our role is really the nexus with our academic enterprise, with whatever benefits the business provides in that regard, whether it's as it is in one campus that we're talking about right now, helping to make recommendations about curriculum for a particular area related to that business at a community college, for providing internships, paid internships for our students. There are a number of things that are points of nexus that I think, yeah, absolutely, CUNY has to be vigilant to make sure we're getting it. That's why we're participating in this. The state's participating in it for the growth of job businesses, and that's their monitoring obligation, I believe.
But staying with your discussion, would just one of the economic benefits to the CUNY school be paid internships to its students?
I
could be,
wouldn't use that terminology. I think it's one of the points of nexus that we would be looking for reasons why CUNY would want to be a part of this. It might be paid internships, it might be work on the curriculum, it might be helping us develop a program at a community college that would lead to employment in this country, which I think is what you'll see in March. And certainly those are things that we want to monitor to make sure they're delivered on by.
Because if they don't deliver, the students are probably not going to go to ED.
There's certain monitoring, I think, that the state has an obligation to do that we probably don't want to step into their shoes and do it. But I think we can continue to report to this committee, to provide updates on this, and we'll be providing the first action item, if things progress as we hope, in the first week in March.
Thank you, Dana, and thank you, Chancellor, for the clarification points. This sounds like potential for quite an exciting venture. Obviously, there are lots of points of information that we need to get clarified and to quickly understand before we fuel up. I know this is an important program to the state as well to the city and to us, given our internship possibilities and.
It's complicated.
It is
And we're
very
happy to provide
complicated.
more information on it.
Yes.
It's a complex program, but it is an exciting opportunity, and one where, frankly, SUNY is ahead of us and has, as I think Dana mentioned, about 70 of these businesses approved by the state. So we'll have an opportunity a little bit to watch and learn from their progress with it as well.
I just wanted to say that Dana's silent partner down at the end of the table is Richard Nadio from my office, who's worked hard and very effectively on this.
Thank you, Richard, thank you. Also, Chancellor, I just want to make sure that obviously all of the things that Startup New York entails should not be reported to this particular committee, but again, with the clarifying items, we'll figure out which pieces would be appropriate. So thank you very much, and with that, we are going to move on to the last agenda item. At our last meeting, you might remember the Chancellor did request us to have a plan to begin briefing sessions for the management of facilities planning, including bonding process, to determine opportunities for new spaces and public-private partnerships going forward. This was discussed with the interim Vice Chancellor Bertram and Mr. Lemieux, and Bob will now go over the outline for the upcoming presentations that we plan to give to the board so that we can be better informed and better prepared to make decisions like Startup New York.
Okay, so what we presented is an outline. We should, and Judy would really prefer to have a discussion when she's here, but let me just go through what the outline would entail. These plannings, we would talk about the master plans, how we determine space needs, including current and projected needs based on academic offerings, and maintaining the space inventory. Opportunities and constraints associated with the planning, which renovations and new buildings or leasing space, the ways we can actually make space available. And then the second one would be financing CUNY's capital program, including the funding sources, which include New York State, New York City, and private funding. Capital eligibility of projects, CUNY CUC relationships, CUNY destiny relationship, because they do allow construction for us. About contracting, and how we basically evaluate capital requests from the colleges. Then on public-private partnerships, we talk about evaluating our assets and coordinating development, which involves planning, the pre-development or the design and the financing of the project, and the actual construction. And finally, we'll talk about design and construction and management, how we do our project management, how we basically have technical services division as part of the group, how we have a construction division, and how we develop and work with the colleges on their critical maintenance programs, which is what we've been getting some kind of state funding for the last 6 or so years. Less this year, but we've always gotten something. So that'll be the plan.
So before we get into any discussion, just want you to know, Judy and I discussed this together, and we were planning to go over this in a little more detail, but since she's not here, I would really like for the discussion to happen when she's here, so that we can really go into, the order and preferences and all this stuff. But I just wanted to make you aware that we do plan to come to you with some well-thought-out presentations so that more information will be shared with this body. Okay?
Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. You are very welcome, and it's my pleasure.
One thing I would hope, without, obviously we'll save the detail for later, but is really just figure out what the numbers should look like so we can compare apples with apples, because I do think we need to be trying to get a structure for like 1 year or 5 year follow-ups, just seeing what our projection was and then how we really did. We have discussed at this table many times, if we're looking at leasing or purchases, we need to think about what comps the committee should be looking at. So I think all this really helps us organize it a lot more. But but I think then really the numbers have to show where are we, what are we planning, how are we doing, and then what are the plans compared to others.
Okay. All right. With that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you for coming.